Hi everyone, and welcome to our show Future of Europe. Today we have the chance to receive Mahé, a student LLM in International and European Law at the Catholic University of Lille. So today, Marin will introduce us to the digital market and its importance and consequences in competition law, especially in Europe. So Marin, in the first place, simply, what is the digital market and why it is so important to consider it regarding to competition law?
So hello Morgan, and thank you for welcoming me on your show today. So to answer very basically your question, the digital market is a market on which interactions between companies and consumers are made through the internet. The digital market is important to consider because of the new dynamic it creates today in competition law. And one considerable aspect to have in mind when assessing the digital market today is the firms that act on it. They are digital, and so they have as their main characteristics their extraterritoriality. Let's take the most prominent example to illustrate this extraterritoriality, which is GAFAM. So this acronym designates 5 huge American firms, which are the main actors on the digital market, namely Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft. In this case, extraterritoriality can be understood at the fact that GAFAM are not attached to a specific territory. They might have headquarters in the United States and offices all around the world. However, their services are worldwide and do not depend on a specific territory in itself. In fact, as mentioned by the professor Jacques Fontanelle, their digital economy is based on a global level and not only on a national level. As an interesting and demonstrative example of this extraterritoriality and its problematic, it is possible to talk about the Microsoft Ireland case from the United States. In this case, and as clarified by Theodore Christakis, a US judge ordered Microsoft to submit to the US authorities email of a suspect in the context of a drug trafficking case. However, those emails were stored in Microsoft server outside of the United States in Ireland, which means outside of the territory of the search warrant for the email. Thus, Microsoft refused to submit the contents of these emails, and on the ground that data in question was in data center located outside the United States, and that the ground law of the search warrant had no extraterritorial effect. So in this case, the aspect of the extraterritoriality simply blocked justice. This is a very important aspect to understand in order to assess the full new set of dynamic that creates the digital market and the consequences that it has in competition law.
Interesting. So the digital market is a type of new market that emerges through the internet with specific companies, right?
Yes, exactly.
But you also talked about consequences of the digital market in competition law. What do you mean?
Well, when it comes to GAFAM, we have to consider their huge and dominant position on the market. To make it clear, a dominant position is in fact a position of economic strength enjoyed by a company, which enables it to prevent effective competition because of its power to behave independently from its competitors, customers, and ultimately consumers. A control of a dominant position has to be kept in mind in competition law, where the goal is to create an effective market with effective competition in order to ensure consumer welfare. However, in their actions, GAFAM most of the time abuse their dominant position, it can be demonstrated by the numerous cases in front of the Court of Justice of the European Union, or even before courts all around the world, as I mentioned just a minute ago about the United States. The biggest problem encountered today in competition law when it comes to the digital market is that the current tools used to assess a dominant position are not as adequate as they could be to deal with this new type of company.
Could you explain to us what those tools are?
In fact, there are many tools used in competition law to assess a dominant position on the market. It's actually a mix of different methods that will lead us to know if a company is dominant or not, and then if it abuses its position or not. When reading Article 102 of the TFU, that refers to this matter, different aspects have to be assessed in order to declare the company dominant or not, and especially its market shares, its market power, its field of services or of product, and its geographical market. Inside all of this category, other specific tools can be found. However, with the digital market and GAFAM, their characteristics make it difficult to fully control their dominant position. They are dominant, and there is no doubt about it in our mind. However, demonstrating it and regulating it in order to ensure that the market will not be endangered can be difficult.
So, in what exactly are these tools inadequate?
They are inadequate in that they do not take into consideration the very specificities of the digital market. As an example, when wanting to define the market power of a company, such as Google, let's say, we supposedly based our research on a defined market. However, in the case of GAFAM, and especially Google, the market is diverse, which means that it is very hard to define its limit due to interchangeability of firms. To explain quickly this concept, Google has a search engine called Google Search, as we all know, and since most of us use Google Search on a very regular basis, it would be easy to consider that Google has a dominant position in the market of search engine. On the other side, we all know Amazon, which is an hybrid platform where you can offer goods to customers and when you can buy goods. These two companies for the moment seem very different and to act on very different markets. But now, let's say you want to shop on the internet. You have two possibilities. The first one, you directly type what you are looking for in the Google search engine, and you follow the link offered by Google. And the second one is that you type your research directly on the Amazon website and follow Amazon's proposition. So we clearly see in this case that limits between the two companies and their respective market became very blurred, which is problematic for the current tools to define market power and thus a dominant position.
So, in this situation, two important companies are active in the same market. But if the definition of the market is the only issue, there is no real problem, since you mentioned the fact that a dominant position is set through a combination of many different tools.
Yes, you're right on this point. However, the definition of the market is not the only inadequacy when it comes to the digital market. One last example could be the consideration of prices, which has an important place in European competition law when defining a dominant position. For instance, market power of a company is understood as the ability to determine and impose sale prices, including prices that are below the competitive level. When it comes to the digital market, most of the services offered do not cost us anything, or at least not money. But to go even further, sanctions are also not adequate when it comes to the huge actors that act on the market, on the digital market. We have already mentioned the extraterritoriality of GAFAM, sometimes making it impossible to judge a case because some important files are not stored in the state of the trial. But even when a case has been judged, sanctions most of the time amount to fine, do not represent anything for these firms that have a turnover of billions of dollars. Just to have an idea, even the new record fine of the EU Commission of 4.125 billion euros imposed on Google in the case Google and Alphabet against Commission only representing 1.9% of its annual advertising revenue in 2021.
Okay, this is a clear point. So, if current tools of competition law are inadequate in regard to the digital markets, is there any solutions?
Yes, of course there are solutions. Following the work of PhD Manuel Wurtzerfer, one of the most important reforms of the field would be to go beyond prices, as I mentioned earlier. It would indeed be useful to pass new laws and regulations that would update the market concept and market definition, but also develop new analytical tools and consider new forms of market power, such as data power. We have to keep in mind that data represents a form of money in the digital market. Most of the time, consumers pay with their data information and privacy, sometimes not without even knowing it. One last idea could be structural remedies also that could be useful. For example, since it would mean the breakup of an important company in different and separated little companies, instead of a big one controlling all of them as we have right now, such as, for example, with the Meta company that controls Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, among many other companies. In fact, and as a conclusion for today, European competition law is on a good track to reform its field and make it more accurate to the digital market. We recently saw the development of the Digital Market Act and Digital Service Act that take into consideration most of the new challenges. So now left to see if it will be enough to regulate the digital market and its important actors.
Thank you, Marin, for your presentation, and see you soon on the next episode of Future of Europe.